Hello, my name is Owen Miles, Field CTO at Everbridge, and in this short video we're going to look at how the Everbridge Critical Event Management solution fits into your response to the Bank of England operational resilience requirements, enabling you to operationalize those plans to deliver your important business service recovery. We will look at a little bit of the theory and then what that looks like in practice. But first, there's a key concept to understand: the critical event. As you can see, a critical event is a really simple concept. It is when one of your assets is impacted by a risk that may require you to take action. But what is an asset? An asset is your internal people and locations that support your IBS. But it is also your digital ecosystem that is needed to ensure your important business services are operational. And finally, an asset is a third-party network required for you to deliver an IBS. And what about the risks? These can be both internal and external to your organization in both the physical and digital worlds. Whenever one of your assets is impacted by a risk, we need to assess the situation, locate impacted staff and services, as well as responders and key stakeholders. We need to take action. We need to operationalize the operational resilience response. And during and after the recovery process, we need to analyze the status of that recovery, provide stakeholders with dynamic dashboards and reports, and finally provide post-incident reports and analysis on our response. So if we take an overall perspective to responding to operational resilience, the starting point is the planning phase, and often utilizes tool sets to support the process of generating business continuity programs, business impact analysis, and creating and managing recovery plans. This is often a very complex and extensive process, but then something happens, and we need to respond to the event. This may involve an emergency response, crisis management, and business recovery. But the challenge here is that planning tools frequently are not response ready. And what we often see is a disconnect between the planning and the response solutions. So where does Everbridge's critical event management fit into the operational resilience? Well, it sits at the point where the IBS is impacted. It is the operational tool set utilized to inform, coordinate, and track the responses from all parties by enabling the response plans to be digitized, operationalized, and added to a solution that fully integrates into the collaboration, orchestration, and communication processes. And what we find is that as the organization improves their readiness and maturity, that actually the adverse impacts of each one of these phases of the recovery is mitigated. Time to perform steps is reduced, to gather information, to activate the response plans, and more importantly, given that plans rarely survive engagement with a critical event, to be able to adapt the plans to respond to a critical event. So let's look at this process in action. We will be experiencing the Everbridge solution as 4 different people and see their perspective on the response. And first, we'll look at the operational resilience lead, the person determining if we need to activate the response plan, and probably the person coordinating centrally those responses. The second is an affected customer, both internal and external customers. Thirdly, our boots on the ground responder who will be resolving the issues. And then finally, as senior key stakeholders. So here we see our operational resilience lead's mobile device, and they're away from their desk. Perhaps they're traveling, or indeed it could be out of hours. They're receiving a communication as they're the current on-call person based on their schedule, and they're receiving it through multiple channels: SMS, email, voice, and in this case, a mobile app push message, informing them that one of their important business services is impacted. They have all the details of what has happened, and now they need to make a decision based on the information they received as to whether or not they should activate their response. All they're required to do is respond to this message to activate the response plan, which they're going to do now. And while their job is far from done, they know that the next stage of the response will automatically happen. So now we look at one of our external customers affected by the important business service being impacted. This message was automatically triggered by the response we saw from our operational resilience lead. And as you can see, they're being informed of the impact and also being told when they'll get an update, in this case, in the next 30 minutes. Again, we're sending the message via multiple communication methods, in this case, an email. But here we have not asked them to respond or confirm. This message could have gone to millions of our customers, informing them that there is an issue, reducing the number of complaints received by our support team. But what about internal customers, our employees? Well, again, we have the communication here in email format. But of course, this can also be sent via SMS, voice, and mobile push. In this case, we're providing our internal staff with the information they can share with our customers, so they are warned in advance of the issue and ensuring they can keep our customers informed and as happy as possible. In this case, for audit purposes, we're asking them to confirm receipt of the message, which they now do by clicking that link. But what about the people who are actually fixing the issue? In this case, we join one of our engineers, and you can see a number of tasks have been automatically allocated to, and now they can interact with these tasks. Of course, these tasks are not sent to an individual, they're sent to a group of people responsible for responding. So the first thing the engineer needs to do is to take ownership of the task they're working on. They do that by marking it in progress so the rest of the team knows it's being worked on. But perhaps they run into a problem. They need some assistance in resolving this issue. So they mark the task as needing attention and add details of exactly what help they need. In this case, they're asking for some further information to support their response. This request is automatically flagged to our operational resilience lead, who is now coordinating the response. And they can then source that information and provide that back to our engineer, and here is our response back. So now that engineer can continue with their process of responding to the critical event. Of course, they can be managing multiple tasks at the same time, simply by switching back and forth between tasks. Once they complete an individual item, they mark it as done. And finally, we look at the view of our senior stakeholders. While they have no specific tasks allocated to them, they do need to understand where the business is in the recovery process. They may need to review tasks that need attention. Perhaps they can step in and provide information or allocate additional resources or budget to ensure that the response is completed within the recovery time objectives. They can self-serve and self-inform in order to monitor the situation without taking time away from valuable resources, allowing them to focus on responding and ultimately resolving the issue with our important business service. And of course, once we've worked through all of the plans, completed the tasks, taken our actions, and recovered the important business service, we need to audit what has happened, generate reports, understand the process, what worked and what did not, and finally update the plan so that next time the process is smoother and quicker. And this is where the Everbridge critical event management solution fits into operational resilience. Always on, always ready to communicate, orchestrate, and automate your response plans, allowing you to operationalize your operational resilience. Thank you.